Hello future tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
What the customers do is they define certain amount, let's say like $60,000. So for today, the cost of that plant and machinery is 60,000, but 10 years later, it's not going to be 60,000. So they show it as a depreciation. I will show you how exactly this is done when we deal with the fixed assets. And then accounts payable credit card. You understood all these things. Income is the one which deals with sales. Again, cost of goods sold. This also comes as part of the sale, which means when we are selling something, there is a cost associated with that particular item. And that cost has to be shown somewhere in one of the accounts. And that account is your cost of goods, sold account, other income, other expense, deferred revenue. All these types are the chart of accounts. So how do you create them? You can come here. You can specify one of the numbers. And then you can specify if you want this to be a parent, a child of certain account, then you can actually do that. So when you do this, let us say I am selecting bank account. So once you do that, the type automatically becomes bank. The reason behind that is the child can be a bank account only if the parent is a bank account. So likewise, if I take any cost of goods sold, maybe, let us say, or if I take any fixed asset type, this is a fixed asset account and this becomes fixed automatically. So if I take the accounts receivable, maybe let us see 6,000, maybe accounts receivable or something. Let us say expense. If I'm creating an expense account, so this type becomes automatically expense because the 600 parent is already an expense account. So that is the reason the type becomes expense automatically for me. And then you can actually give the same as description also. You can specify the date on which you want this account to be created. And then these are the general rate type and cash flow rate type. Now, these are the currency exchange rate types. So, whenever you're dealing with this, you have to specify if it is average or if it is current or if it is historical. Who will do that? Your customer will do it. Don't worry about it. All you have to do is send out the template with this general rate. Type selection as average, current or historical. They will fill in the data and then send it out to you. Now, when does this currency get enabled? This currency gets enabled only if you are dealing with the cash or bank. You see this. I selected cash and then the currency got enabled for us. Let's create a bank account. Something like this. So, and this is your. What is then inventory? So, inventory is that whenever you are receiving something, when you're selling something, then in that case there is if the goods are going out of the warehouse and the account type is related to that. So in that case, you will select the inventory that you know. This particular account type is an inventory. And what's this? Eliminate intercompany transactions. If you remember, I was talking about company A and company B. So company A wants to buy something from B. The company B becomes a seller for company A and company A is a vendor for company B. In those cases, whenever you want to deal with the intercompany stuff, that is when this eliminated intercompany transactions has to be enabled. Now summary account. So let me show this. If you remember, there is a parenter, there is a child, one child, two child, three, whatever it is. So, like this, we are creating the chart of accounts. So what happens is this parent account which is created. The first account which is created is always marked as a summary account. Now, what summary means is that there are no specific transactions that get posted to that particular parent. However, I have 2000 here. I have 3000 here. And then there are some 4 or 500 of worth. Transactions have been done over here. And then the parent will have the summation of all these things. Simple. This plus, that 9500 will be on that, and no transactions will be posted to the parent if you mark it as summary. So if I go back to let me create this first and then I'll show you. If I go back to the list, there would be certain accounts which are already summary. And for those summary accounts, the transactions will not be posted. Only the child transactions that you have. The amounts on the child transactions will be a summary on the parent. Any questions on that? Any questions there? No. Thank you. I take it as a no. One sec. So what is this? Restrict to department, restrict to class, and restrict to location. What actually this does is you have created certain departments classes under the parent subsidiary. So you can restrict your account, the GL account that you're creating. You can restrict that to a department or to a class or to a location. And just remember that your bank accounts, whenever you're dealing with the bank accounts, you cannot create the bank accounts for multiple subsidiaries. You can only create the bank account for a single subsidiary. So if I include children, now you see this. It says bank accounts and credit card accounts must be restricted to a single subsidiary, which means one bank account is mapped only with one subsidiary. You cannot have one bank account dealing with multiple subsidiaries. So that is the reason you cannot include the children for the bank accounts. However, for the other types, even if it's for expense or if it is for fixed assets or if it is for accounts receivable, accounts payable, other expenses, all these things, you can actually make this chart of account available for all the subsidiaries by clicking on parent and then include children. If you do that, that particular account will be available for Australia, Canada, Mohan Electronics, United Kingdom, United States, East West, all these things will be available. So what I meant to say was to be more precise. I have a vendor for subsidiary 1. For 2, 3, 4, 5, I have a vendor. So when I'm creating the chart of account, let us say I'm creating accounts receivable. And I'm marking this as include children, which means this particular accounts receivable will be available for my vendors across these subsidiaries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across all these subsidiaries. I can use the same accounts, receivable account. However, so you might ask me to if we are using the same chart of account for all these subsidiaries, for all these different vendors, how do we know what amount is being posted to which vendor? In that case, under the reports, there is a subsidiary filter. You can filter by subsidiary, you can filter by vendor, and then you can see what amounts have been posted to which accounts. I mean the same account. Of course, it is this accounts receivable, same account that you've been using across multiple subsidiaries, across multiple vendors. But you will have those. When we see the reports, maybe it'll be a little difficult for you to visualize what I'm talking about. But when we see the reports, I'll show you how we filter out the subsidiaries, how we filter the vendors, and then we will see how the amounts are getting posted to each of those accounts. Any questions? All. So we will create this bank account for the subsidiary as East. And what you are creating the type you know. This is a primary bank account. So don't bother about the showing fixed assets management thing. When you are creating a fixed assets type of account, that particular account has to be showing up on. I mean, you have to select showing fixed assets management for this. Let's say you have to click on this, click on control, and then select these things. So once you do that, these GL accounts will be available for selection under the assets. I will show that to you later on when we come to the fixed assets. But as of now, this is how the accounts are created, but the chart of accounts are not created manually. Usually they are not created manually. One odd account, if there are like 450 accounts, let us say all these are created through a CSV import. So you will have these fields in the CSV. Import the number name, sub-account type, currency general rate type, cash flow rate type, eliminate intercompany transactions. All these will be fields on the chart of account. Whatever fields that you see here on the screen now will be available in that chart of account, Excel sheet. You will have to map that and you'll have to put in the entire 450 accounts in that particular sheet along with the parent. Who is the parent? So if you are creating a parent, if you have parent-child relationship, then the parent account has to be given first. Because the child, when you're creating the child, the parent has to be available in the system. If that's not available, it will throw an error saying that the parent is not there. So you have to make sure that the parent is listed on top of the children. Once the parent get created, automatically, you will have the parent selection available in the list under that for the child chart of accounts that you create, not only in the child chart of accounts. Even in case of departments, classes, locations, subsidiaries, whatever you're doing, you need to make sure that the parents are defined first so that when the parents are available in the system, that is when, see, as of now, if even this, if I edit this, if I want to put in some parent sub account of, if I have to, then that has to be available in the system first. If I say is checking and that is not available in system at all, then obviously the system will throw an error correct. Similarly, you should also have the subsidiary. The subsidiary has to be there in the system. So for the chart of account to be created, what all need to be created? Initially, you should have the currencies, you should have the parent accounts, you should have the subsidiaries, you should have the departments, classes, location. So after all these things are created, only then you can create the chart of accounts. Does that make sense? because you know this list has to be available in the system. If this list itself is not there, you cannot create the chart of accounts. Good. Hope I'm making sense. Yes, tell him. Yes, got it. Got it. So what I meant to say is, in any transaction, not only in chart of accounts, when you're creating departments, you should have the subsidiaries. When you're creating the locations, you should have the subsidiaries, because subsidiary is a selection on the location, subsidiary is a selection on the class, subsidiary is a selection on the department, and your subsidiary is a selection on chart of accounts as well. So the first thing that you would ever create in a system, once the bundle is installed, once it is called a NOM bundle, which is North American bundle. When you're dealing with North America, of course. So NOM manufacturing bundle, NOM purchasing bundle, NOM sales bundle. So all these bundles will be available. So once the bundle is installed, the first thing that you do is enable features. The next thing that you do is set up your accounting preferences. After that, what you will do? You will set up your user preferences. Set up user preferences and then the general preferences. In the general preference, you have to specify what the company is, what is the company information. All these things have to be done. After doing that, any transaction that you do on NetSuite, first subsidiary, and then you can create the segmentation classes, departments, locations. So once these are available, then you can create your chart of accounts. So of course the currencies would be coming in with the bundle automatically. So you don't have to worry about the currencies. You have to create your subsidiaries, classes, locations and departments, then the chart of accounts. So these are the vital, very important data that needs to be in the system before you do any transactions for that matter. The reason behind that is if you want to put in a purchase order, that has to be enabled. So that comes in the enable features. If you want to put in a sales order, then that has to be enabled. That is a part of enable features. And when you are dealing with any transactions, only when you want to put in a purchase order, then a vendor has to be in the system. So after creating the subsidiaries, locations, departments, you will create your chart of accounts and then you will create your vendors, customers and employees. I'm sorry, employees are the first option that you will create because at least one person should have access. One administrator should have access to the NetSuite. So you, as a functional consultant, you will identify who's the administrator from the client side and you will give them NetSuite access in production and in sandbox as well. So once the employees are created, once the subsidiaries are there, chart of accounts, classes, departments, locations, vendors and customers, all these are there. What else do you think is missing out to create a purchase order? Just think and then let me know. So I'm saying tell me. Items. Perfect. So when you want to deal with certain things, you want to purchase something. When you want to sell something, you need to have items within the system. The first is employee access. Next is subsidiary. And let us go one after the other. First is the bundle installation. Now, once bundle is installed, you will enable the features and then you will set up the accounting preferences. And when will you do that? when you are actually conducting the personalization sessions with the client, what they want to enable, what they want to disable. And these are module wise, by the way, which means R2R. Somebody will do R2R, somebody will do O2C, somebody do P2P, somebody will P2C, somebody will do a lead to quote. So based on those personalization sessions, enable features are done, and then the accounting preferences. This also is module wise. Whoever is dealing with certain models will enable and disable accounting preferences. So everything will be set up. You have the bundle installation done. You have the enable features. You have the accounting preferences. Everything is set up in the system now. And then I think we can put the employee access here. And then enable features, accounting preferences. And then comes your subsidiary structure. Once the subsidiary is created, this is all classification. What is classification? Subsidiary department, location and class. Everything comes under segmentation. This is called as classification or segmentation. So you have to create this, and then you will create your chart of accounts, because all these are selections in chart of accounts. After chart of accounts is created, you will create vendors and then the customers. And then comes your items. So all different types of items. It could be your inventory, non-inventory, assembly items. All these have to be created. So that is what I was talking about when I was talking about the initial data migration of just 5 of each type as sample. And this sample also, you should have all these available. So once your account is set up in this way, you can create your vendors, you can create your customers' items. So once all this is set up, then you will do a walkthrough. Walkthrough of different modules. P2P O2C record report, procure to pay, order to cash, lead to quote, project to cash, marketing to ROI. So these are the different modules that you would actually do a D2B design to build. These are the different modules that you would do a walkthrough of. So when you want to do a walkthrough, what is a walkthrough? Walkthrough is nothing but you are putting in all transactions and you're showing the client how NetSuite system is working. So what exactly needs to be done? All these things have to be created. We have gone in exactly the same way, just like the way we do the implementation. See, I have shown you what is a bundle installation. I've shown you what is the access looking like. I have shown you what is an employee access. Then we discussed about enable features. Then we discussed about accounting preferences, everything in detail. Then we came to the segmentation. We've seen how the subsidiary is created, department class locations are created, and then the chart of accounts are created. Now we'll see how the vendors and customers are set up. And I've also discussed how the items are set up through the CSV imports as well. So we are ready for the walkthrough now. We have everything in the system which is required for my transaction to go through. So what are my required things? When I want to put in a purchase order, I need to have a vendor, which I've already created. One vendor is created. And then I need to have an item that needs to be selected on the purchase order, which we have already created. And then we also might need to have expense accounts in order to show on the purchase order. Did we do that? Expense accounts are already created. And then the tax structure. Did we do the tax structure already, which has to be picked up on the purchase orders. Yes, we have done that. So this is also created. So these are my master data which I need for the transactions to be going through within my system. If I want to put in a purchase order, I need to have these things. If I want to put in a sales order, I need to have chart of accounts. The accounts are receivable, which is already created within the system. Customers are already created. There are certain, we did not create them, but there are certain customers in the system already. I'll show you how the customers are created by the way. So customer is already there, and item we have created already the items, and the tax structure is already there. Then I'm ready for my walkthrough so that we can get into the transactions. So this is how the entire setup is done, guys. Any questions on this? So far, what all we have covered? I have just shown you a brief, of what needs to be done. What is a data migration? What is the master data which should be available for me to actually create something in the system, to create a purchase order, to create a sales order, to create a work order? These are the minimum things that I need to have in the system which we have created already. Likewise, you might have certain other master data as well, which is your accounting lists. What is your accounting list? You will have certain categories. Vendor category, customer category. You can set up all those things. Payment methods, price levels. I have also defined price levels in detail with you as well. Like when would the quantity wise pricing level that you can define. All these things have been covered already. You can have your vendor category. Now, these accounting lists that you have here are the master data which you will be using on some entities. Which means the vendor category, it will go on the vendor. Customer category, it will go on the vendor again. On the vendor record, you will have these selections. So, whatever vendor category that you have selected, you might have a 1099 contractor, consultant and insurance supply agency, or a collaborative company that you have there. So these are the different retail vendors, wholesale vendors. You can create all these things as categories. And where do you see these categories being used when you are actually doing the reporting? So in this month, my retail vendors, how many? How much of payment did I make to this retail vendors? How much of payment did I make to this wholesale vendors? So you can actually have those filters and then you can do that. So all these are your lists that you have here. You just have to go through each of the customer message, project type, project status, payment method. These are the lists that you can create it, and all these lists will be used somewhere in the system. They might be used on a vendor. They might be used on a customer. They might be used on an item. Item category would be there. Vendor category would be there. Customer category would be there. So all these are actually used as part of the list that you have over there. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.